Hi everyone! Today I'm going to teach you how to make this explosion stacking gift box tutorial.
So let's talk about the supplies you're going to need in order to create this really cool stacking explosion gift box. You will absolutely need to have cardstock. I like to use 12 by 12 cardstock for this particular project because I want my box to be of decent size. This box will be about 6.5 inches or so wide once it's actually put together in its box form. But I use 65-pound cardstock. You can go up to 100-pound. I don't recommend going below 65-pound though, because then the paper could become very fragile. You will also need to have either a pair of scissors or a cutting machine. I am using my Cricut Maker and my scoring wheel along with my fine point blade to get this template cut out. If you do not have a cutting machine, that is okay. You can still use a pair of scissors. You can use the printable PDFs I am providing for this free template. And you can also use something like a scoring tool as well to follow the score lines if you're cutting by hand. In addition to that, you're also going to need a hot glue gun for attaching all the pieces together, and you'll also need some form of tape. I'm just using a basic Scotch tape here. And lastly, you're going to need to have either like a ribbon or some baker's twine, something of that sort, because that's what's going to connect our pieces together and allow them to go up and down. So make sure you have some sort of thin ribbon or baker's twine of some sort. First thing I'm going to do is I'm going to cut out all of these pieces and then we're going to begin assembling it.
Okay, I want to show you just a couple things with the template here in Cricut Design Space. If you're using a different cutting machine software, you can follow the similar steps according to your program and how it works. Here I am in Cricut Design Space and I'm just going to click on New Project. I'm going to go over to the Upload button and I'm going to bring in the SVG file for the explosion gift box. Once that loads, I'm going to click on Save and then select it here under Recent Uploads and Insert Images. This will bring it onto my canvas here. Now this is a large file and I like to keep it all in one file because it helps us keep everything proportional to each other. If you decide you want to resize this at all, you need to do it at this point in time. My file is set up to make about a 6.5-inch wide box once everything has been put together and built and it's completely closed together. But if you do want to resize this, you need to resize it as a group. So do not hit that ungroup button until you've resized it. Otherwise, all the proportions for these boxes are going to get distorted. So make sure you resize it only as a group. If you want to go bigger or a tiny bit smaller, then you can do that at this point in time here. Just make sure you don't ungroup until you have resized it to your preference. Now, what you do need to do is you do need to ungroup the file once you bring it in. And all of these black lines that you see on all of these pieces, you need to select each one of them, and you'll know you've selected them because when you look over here in our layers panel, you will see that you have that selected by it being a little bit more grayed out. So you want to select each one of those black outlines that are on all these pieces, and where it says Operation and Basic Cut, or it just might say Cut, go down to where it says Score, and it's going to change it from a cut line to a score line. Then you're going to want to make sure that for each piece you select that score line and the base piece and you use your Attach tool. That way your score lines are held in place. You're going to want to go ahead and repeat that with each and every one of these pieces. It takes just a little bit to set up, but once you do, make sure you save your project, and then anytime you want to make this again, you never have to go through the process of scoring and attaching things. So I'm going to change all of my lines. I also want to mention that these pieces here are going to act as decorative pieces and little pockets that you will be able to add to your explosion box. And these here are just some simple squares that I've put in using my Shapes tool over here on the left hand side, and then I've picked these words from the images here in Cricut Access and I've just placed those on there, and I've changed it so that it is a draw line and it will write with a pen, and then I've used my Attach tool to make sure that the draw line for the words is attached to the square. Then I'm going to slip inside these little pockets that are going to go on each of the folds that fall open when you open the explosion box. This is of course optional, but I just wanted to mention at this point in time, when you're doing design space setup, you may want to consider, writing something to your recipient and adding some little pieces of notes that can be put into these pockets. Once you get everything set up there in Design Space, you've changed all your score lines and used your Attach tool, go ahead and click the Make It button, which will take you to the cut screen. It's going to separate everything by color here, and you can see that all of our score lines are holding true where they need to be, and none of that has been separated, so that means we attached everything we needed to. I'm going to go ahead and hit Continue and select my Maker machine, which is connected via Bluetooth. You can also connect it via the USB cable that it comes with your Cricut machine. I am going to select medium cardstock because it is closest to what I am using. If you're using a heavier weight cardstock for any reason, you may want to go and select that instead. Since I am using the Maker, I will be using the scoring wheel. If you're using the Explorer, then you can use the scoring stylus in its place. You'll just need to click on Edit Tools and then select Scoring Stylus.
So like we went over in Design Space, I have selected medium cardstock for this particular project. You could also select heavy if you use something heavier than like an 80-pound cardstock. You might want to go with a heavy setting. Placing that onto my mat, and I need to change out my 5-point blade for my scoring wheel, which is tip number 1. If you're using the if you're using the Explorer, you may need to use a stylus in clamp A. Placing that in there, and I'm going to load this. And then Cricut's going to prompt me to go ahead with the cut. First, our machine is detecting that we have the right tool in place there, and I do. So now it's going to proceed with scoring this first, and then we're going to add the 5-point blade for it to cut the actual template out. Okay, now that I have completed the scoring, I'm going to not unload my mat, but I'm just going to place in the 5-point blade, and then click that flashing icon button again, and it's going to cut the design out. Okay, now my scoring and cutting is finished, so I'm going to unload my mat. I'm going to flip my mat over and peel the mat away from the material just to help eliminate the curling and all of that stuff that can come with working with cardstock. Okay, so I have cut out all of the pieces of this template. First, for my pink and yellow here, these are going to be our 2 box bottoms, and then they're going to have a top that goes on it. And those are going to be the ones that you're going to lift and it's going to fall, you're going to lift and it's going to fall. You're going to do that twice. And then our green, our aqua, our teal, and our purple here are going to be the ones that end up growing in a stack and coming out of the box. And this last piece here is going to be the innermost part of the box that is the swirl box center that you can open up to put something small inside. So that's the progression of what we're working on here. We are going to start first with the pink, then move to the yellow, and progress down from there. So I'm going to set the rest of these colors aside, and we're going to start with the pink. All right, so this is the largest box. This is the box that's going to be seen from the outside when everything is closed together. So just bear that in mind if you want it to look a certain way when you're cutting out your paper color choices or anything like that. This piece here is the top of the box, and this hexagon here and these 6 sides is the bottom of the box. So we need to start first with building the bottom of the box. And my machine scored each one of these along the bottom. And if you don't have a machine and you're doing this by hand with scissors, there's score lines in the PDF that you can follow with a scoring tool as well. So all I'm going to do here is I'm going to fold along those score lines so that it, is nice and flexible and it's been folded right where it needs to. We are going to be assembling this with hot glue. You can use like a basic tack glue or liquid glue, that's fine too. I like using hot glue because I can get it to dry quickly so I can move to the next step and I'm not waiting and I'm not risking things shifting around on me while it dries. All right, so each one of these 6 pieces has been folded now. And each one of these pieces is going to go right on the side of our hexagon here, like so. Be mindful that you are pressing your crease, your score line, all the way up to match the edge of that hexagon. So everything is very seamless and very nice and tight and in uniform together. So I'm gonna add a little bit of glue right here with my hot glue gun. And I'm gonna take that to one side of that hexagon. I'm gonna sort of fold it over it so that I know I'm getting it precisely butted right up against to the edge there where it needs to be. There we go. That is one. We're going to repeat the same thing on each side. I am using a high temp hot glue gun here, not a low temp, because it gives me a few extra seconds to get that item in position before the glue sets. Okay, so I have all 6 sides added on. Now what I like to do is if you flip this over, you notice that it's a little bit not as neat on this side. So I actually reverse it and I make this the inside and the top that we were just working on, that becomes the bottom. That way if the recipient flips it over, it looks a little bit more smooth and neat and tidy. So I actually reverse this to be the side that's gonna get folded up after I've glued everything on here. Give everything an extra crease just to make sure all of these pieces are going to fall freely when opened, okay? So I'm gonna set that aside, and this is our top of our box now. And we need to fold along all these score lines as well and then glue it together. So I'm gonna start by folding each one of these up. And then each of these tabs here needs to be folded as well. And then for each of the tabs we just folded in, you're gonna add some glue and you're gonna line it up to the other side, and we're gonna close this top together here. Okay, now we're gonna repeat this entire process again. The exact same thing we just did. We're gonna fold together the lid and we're gonna crease each one of these sides and put them on each side of this hexagon base. So exactly the same process. This one's just a little bit smaller. So I'm gonna start by creasing along those score lines for each one, adding hot glue right below that score line where we creased, placing it on one side, kind of folding it over to make sure it's gonna move up and down freely, and repeat the process for each side. Okay, so we have the bottom of that box done. Now we need to assemble the top of the box. Same way we did the pink one. Alright, so we got the top done for that second box. So now I'm moving on to the next size down, and here's where things change. This is where we're transitioning from lifting a lid on a box to actually lifting up to where things are going to stack and fold out progressively. So with this one here, this is the bottom of our box, and that's going to become our bottom piece. And this piece is going to be the inner piece. So it's going to be the part that sits inside of this that rises up and folds out once we've folded it together. So the first step here is going to be to just fold everything along those score lines. And this is the bottom part here, so I'm going to fold along the score lines and glue it together. All right, now that those are folded, I'm going to, all right, so I have those folded. Before I start gluing these together, I need to, you will see in the templates that there's that little X mark that goes right inside of all of these that we scored as well. And that's just a mark for us to punch a tip of our scissors through, because that's where we need to feed the ribbon or the baker's twine through. So grab a pair of scissors. I like to use just my fine point tip scissors here. And very carefully, right where that center point is that's scored, just twist your scissors until you get a large enough hole there to feed some ribbon or twine through. Repeat the process for this piece. There we go. And now we can go ahead and start gluing this together. It's just easier to punch that hole before it's been folded up so you don't end up ripping your paper or crumpling it or anything. Okay, there we go. So there is the bottom there. And this piece is going to be sitting right inside, and this is the piece that's going to come out of the box and end up sort of falling out as the stacking, exploding portion of the box. So if you want to just test that everything's fitting well, then you can do that at this point if you like. I'm just gonna set this aside, and we're gonna repeat the same exact process with this aqua and this teal. So this is the next size down, and then this is the next smallest size, and we're gonna repeat exactly the same process again as we just did with the green one. All right, there we go. And this is going to be the piece that sits down inside of this. Okay, so there are two options for the very last box. There is a foldable box here where you pull the little top on and off, or there is a seamless box that has a swirl top to it that you can pull up. And the reason I recommend using this one is because if you're pulling on this one to raise the stacking explosion box, the lid will often slip off and then you can't adequately raise the box up. So I created this option so that it is a seamless box that can be pulled on so that you can raise the entire tower up. So I do recommend using this one, and this is the one I'm going to show you how to fold. If you want to use this little box, you would fold it exactly the same way we have done everything else, by following those score lines and folding along them, gluing, and then assembling it together. I'm going to set this one aside, and I'm going to fold this one. Okay, so I have folded along all those score lines. You're going to see little diagonal lines that go this direction, and you're going to want to fold those two by pressing like so. Fold over. You'll see how it seamlessly wants to fold in that direction because of the score lines. There we go. All right, now we're going to start with adding glue along here and closing the box together. There we go. And then the last step is to get these little tabs glued to the side of the box here. Okay, so I got the box assembled, and now to learn how to close the box, those little diagonal folds we made, just go ahead and fold them down one on top of each other, and you will feel the box come together with a little spiral on top, just like that. It can help to go around and kind of crease each one a little bit more, give it a little push down gently to get it to stay in place. And that'll be the innermost box that we add to the explosion box. Now it's time to start assembling all of it together. All right, so we're gonna start with the two largest ones here that have the lids. In my case, that is the pink and the yellow. I'm gonna set this lid aside here. So the first thing we need to do is get this situated in here. So I've designed this to where you can have it offset like this so that it opens up and it kind of looks like a flower. So I really like this approach rather than this approach because it just fills out the box even more. It makes it look a little extra special and unique. Now, if for any reason you struggle with getting the placement perfect on it, then I recommend maybe using a liquid glue for this step or even a scrapbooking tape, so that way you can sort of move it around a little bit because hot glue will set a little faster. I like to gather it up and then set it straight down. Make sure everything is behind those score lines so that it is going to close properly when we lift it up, okay? All right, the next step is going to be the next progressive sides down. And now for this one, you do wanna make sure sides are matching up to each one. You don't wanna offset it, you wanna make sure it is stacking in the same direction so that you can close everything up. What we need to do at this point is each of these base pieces is going to get glued down, and each of these inner pieces here that are going to be coming out is going to get a little piece of baker's twine or ribbon stuck here so that it will stay connected and it will stop right where we want it to stop. So we need to first get the string put together before we can glue anything down. All right, so like I said, I'm using a baker's twine here. I'm just going to cut about a 5 or 6 inch piece off. You're going to trim it down way from there, but it's always good to have extra. I'm going to start by threading this through the center of the inner piece here and bring it pretty much all the way. And then what I like to do is I like to add just a tiny bit of glue, just like that. And then I grab my tape and I reinforce it with tape. I like everything to be extra secure here because we don't want this coming apart, because if it does, the whole box will no longer work. Once you've done that, flip it over and you're going to thread it through here, through the bottom of our box, just like that. So it can be helpful at this point to keep it upside down so that you can pull tightly and make sure that that's going to stop exactly where you want it when you lift it out of the box, okay? So I go ahead and get it to where it's nice and snug and there's not a lot of wiggle room here. And then I trim it. And I repeat the process of adding a little glue and then grabbing my tape and reinforcing it. Okay, so that is our first piece all ready to go there. And you'll see that it sits right down in. If anything is catching, see how mine's catching? That's because I didn't add enough glue. So if you run into that problem, you didn't add enough glue to the side to make sure it doesn't catch right there. Just need to close that up. All right, there we go. That one lifts out and that's gonna fold out just like that. And it effortlessly goes right back in as well. So we have our first piece done. set this one aside for a moment. Go ahead and get your string. Thread it through the inner piece first. Get it pulled to where there's just a little tail. Add a little glue. Now we're going to repeat the process by threading this through the bottom again. Just like that. Flip this over. Get it lined up, edge to edge with the hexagon. Pull it nice and tight. I like to trim it down a little bit. Adding some glue. Pulling that nice and snug, just like that. Add some tape if you want. There we go. There is our second piece done. So let's set that aside. And we'll repeat for this very last one here. So I'm gonna pull this out and do exactly the same thing. Get my baker's twine here. All right, there's our next piece already there. Now let's go ahead and let's glue this right on top here. This is our little swirl box in the center. You'll notice that the swirl box is 8-sided and not 6-sided. I attempted to create a 6-sided one, but it did not give this nice spiral effect here. So I went with an 8-sided one, but it still fits very nicely in the center and offers some variation. So just drop some glue right on that and center it. The sides won't match up perfectly because it is an 8-sided one and the others are 6. Okay, so we can see this one goes in nice and seamlessly like that. And now we just have to glue the rest of these together. So starting with the green and our base of our box. Here's the base of our box. Here is the next size. We're going to add glue here. And we're going to place this, and you want to make sure that each side does match up here. You don't want to offset it like we did this one. You want to make sure that it matches up to each side. Okay, so I am going to add glue, place, aim to get it as center as possible. Okay, there's that one. Now we're going to add glue here and repeat the process. All right, and then our last one here. Lining that up on all sides. And there you go. You have completed your Stacking Explosion gift box. Now to put it all together, you'll start at the top, fold that one in, then go to the next one, fold that one in, and then the next one. And then you'll close this up first. It can be a little challenging to get them all in your hand, but you can do it. Now we got that one closed, and now this piece closed. The larger one, I usually just get as many in as I can and then go back around and add it separately. All right, there we go. So we have our box completely closed now. It's ready to be decorated in any way we want. So as far as decorations go, there's lots of different things you can do. I include in the templates some additional little cutouts that you can sort of create little framed pieces from, like you see here. I am including a flower template for you for free with this gift box tutorial, and it can be really pretty to put a flower on top of there, but have fun with it. I want to show you one other option here when it comes to adding things to the actual inside of the explosion box now that we have it assembled. So I'm going to pull this open, and right here on the yellow, you will notice in the templates that there are these little additional pieces. And what these are they are pockets for the side. So we have score lines here that you can fold, just like this. I'm gonna add some glue, side there. Fold that up, press it, and it's gonna look like this, but it's formed a little pocket. Now remember those little cute cards we drew on our Cricut? You can also handwrite some. You can slip those right inside the little pocket, and your recipient can pull them out and read them and then put them back in. So I'm gonna create a couple pockets here. You could do all 6 sides, you could just do a couple. I'm just gonna do a couple here for example's sake. And adding decorations to these flaps here is going to make it want to fall open much more effortlessly. So I do encourage some form of decoration on these exterior ones here for these boxes, and then the other parts here that are the part that falls out when it does the stacking, that's optional, but it is a good idea as well. It does add some nice weight to it. And now we can just pull our box up. There we go, our stacking box is complete. And if you want to add something to this, then you would just pull open and stick your little gift there inside of the box, and then you could close it back up. Like that.
If you want to decorate the top of your box with paper flowers like I have here, I have resources for that linked in the video description and in the blog post, so you can find the same flower templates that go along with that as well.
And that is how you make a stacking exploding gift box. I hope you guys like this tutorial. These templates are completely free for you to enjoy, so please go to my blog and download them and enjoy them. I would love to see what yours turns out like, and you can post it in my Facebook group, which I'm going to link below for you as well. Thanks for watching. See you next time.